实关于小波，我觉得我到现在我还不知道说什么，但是我在这可以讲一个，就是在小波最后的日子里，我曾经给他讲了09年，就是卡夫卡办公室曾经给我发来了8个关于刘晓波的问题。
Before I do the translation, I just said, I know a lot of people here are bilingual. I just flew in from London. The jet lags, my mind goes blank, and please, Professor Nathan, help me. But anyway, so as for what we have to translate, as for Liu Xiaobo, even until today, I don't know what to say, but I'm going to tell you something. When he was in jail, and I got a message from the Kafka office in Prague, and they had 8 questions for Liu Xiaobo.
记得其中的一个问题就是问我说，会不会有一天小波就是又回到公共视野之后，会不会一呼百应？我当时我跟小波说，你猜我怎么回答？我说的，我感觉不到，我觉得我也看不到。我说我就这样回答的。小波听了以后就笑。谢谢哈维尔基金会这次能邀请我过来。谢谢在座所有，谢谢这些年来所有为小波和我一直努力的朋友们，谢谢大家。
刚那个去年刘晓波7月13号然后去世之后，然后刘霞他就经历了长时间的那个失踪。失踪之后，我在8月29号那天就是打通了那个刘霞的电话。
Speaking of the hatred in China, last year, Liu Xiaobo died on July 13th last year, and then soon after she disappeared. And for a long time, we couldn't get hold of her. And then finally, in August, I managed to reach her.
当时我就问他小波走的时候怎么样，他就说小波走的时候，对在场的护工，还有医生，然后还有那些护士，总之这当中我猜想的话，有很多不明身份的人，然后对他们说那个就是我要走了，谢谢，我要走了，谢谢。他老是就在重复，他在那个
During the conversation, I asked Liu Xia what it's like for. I asked Liu Xia about Liu Xiaobo's last moment, and then she told me that before he passed away, he said to the nurses, doctors, and then a lot of people who were there from the Public Security Bureau but who remained anonymous. And he said, I'm going to be gone, and I want to thank you very much. And he repeated that phrase several times.
我当时就是我和刘霞当时因为我也在哭，他也在哭，但是我觉得他这个透露出来的信息非常的重要，因为我就是做这个的，但是我当时就是我问不了什么，但是我就是从这个信息透露出来，刘晓波他的确是到最后一刻，他还是在用他的爱去那个对抗这么一个非常独裁、非常凶残的这种。
When she told me about that, I cried and then she cried. But I think there was a very clear message emerged from what Liu Xiaobo did, meaning like at the last moment of his life, he still wanted to use his love to dispel the hatred or the brutality of this regime.
就是到了第二天，我就有一点准备，我就担心那个我再也见不到这个刘霞了。当时我就是事先就是准备了那个录音，然后我就把这个录音我那天我就有意就问他那个刘晓波最后是什么样的故事。
The next day, I thought I was never going to see Liu Xia again, so I prepared the recording of our conversation and then made it a tape saying the last moments of Liu Xiaobo.
他当时说每天进出他那个，他当时就说那个小波走的时候就是两只脚就是上上下下上上下下，就这么摆动，意思说就在向天堂走去的那个。
我不是那么说的。
不要讲太多的那个Liu Xia doesn't want Liu to talk too much about Liu Xiaobo. Doesn't want to be reminded of the incident. But anyway, so Liao Yu was saying that I was totally distracted. He said something about the last minute his 2 feet, his feet kept stuttering like that, as if he was climbing up to heaven.
就是有些就是我在讲，其实讲我的一个工作，我在讲就是说那个一个记忆的工作者，你就应该想到有些场景它永远是不可能重复的。所以说我在那个刘霞出来之后，我没有和他谈过任何一次这方面的话题，他的话题就是在那个场景讲出来的。
I will talk about my work. I always call myself a tape recorder of history, and so thing happens for a certain everything happens at a specific scene. I never repeat them. That's why when Liu Xia came out, we never talked about what happened during the last moments of Liu Xiaobo, because I thought that things happened at a specific moment, they cannot be repeated.
对，我就想，就是说一个记忆工作者，如果说你要做某一个访谈的话，我觉得就应该像一个有点那个角色，就有一点像，就是你埋伏在暗处，就是把那个场景，那些场景永远不可能那个重复，在那么一个场景说那么。他后来或许他永远不会说，哪怕就是讲同样一段故事，他也永远回不到那样一种场景。这个我那个时候意识到，这个是我的一个工作的一个本能，在起这个工作。
As a tape recorder of history, I always try to make some. I think it's always important to hide while people are talking, and you catch that specific moment. Because once that moment is lost, it never comes back. That's why I always try to engage myself and try to capture that moment, because that's what I think that recorded history should do, and that's what I think I'm always interested in.
Does the hatred still exist?
这个根据我的那个当时录下来的东西，我觉得李晓波他在最后一刻，他都是他都没有仇恨，他这个心里面还是充满了爱，因为他让刘霞一定要出去，然后他就用那个笑，那一段令我非常的感动。
I got distracted. He said even during Liu Xiaobo's last moment, he never had harbored any hatred. Even I was telling you about his feet, showing that he was just full of love. That's why I was he wanted Liu Xia to leave China, but he never had any hatred.
But the regime uses what Liu Xiaobo called making people hate. They use it. They're whipping up nationalism and class hatred, hatred of the West. Does it work? Does it work? Is it, are they succeeding or are they failing?
对于我来说，我比较就是鄙视他们这么一个状态，因为就是我今年已经60岁了，我觉得记录一些东西它是非常重要。有些东西就是说你只要记录了某些真相的东西，它在某一个阶段，现在不会起作用，它在以后的某一个历史阶段，它肯定是会起到作用。
I despise such a practice. That's why I think it's important to record what I'm seeing in the historical moments. I think that even though some people may think it's not important now, but at a certain point, people will realize it's important.
就像那个埃利威塞尔，就是那个记录那个犹太人那些政治的这么一个作家，他当时甚至在觉得就是从奥斯维辛逃出来的某一个木匠，某一个妇女，她的证词，甚至比一些作家很重要的一些作家的一些关于这个东西的写作要更加重要，因为他或许他那个幸存者的那个证词，在人类的历史上，他几乎是唯一的。
Just like we use the name of example literature writer, which is like the literature writer who recorded the lives of those who survived Auschwitz and all the concentration camps. But these are very important. The survivors, the story, the more important than fiction because they actually bear witness to what had happened.
Do you want to comment on this?
Well, yeah. Why was the Chinese government so afraid of Liu Xia?
And Liu Xiaobo.
Well, Liu Xiaobo I can understand, but why were they so afraid of Liu Xia?
Are you asking?
Yes.
这个
中国政权为什么那么怕Liu Xia？
我问他已经我写了。
这是这个人的名，这个
不是，他不会she doesn't want to talk too much about
Oh, okay. She doesn't want to talk too much. All right, I have another question.
But also, I want you to ask, but also comment on this whole phenomenon of this
Well, I think
enemy
you were-
mentality of the regime.
Yeah, you were asking about the enemy, but I mean, I agree that I think it's, my opinion is not as worthwhile right now, but I certainly agree that the regime is succeeding in using that enemy mentality to part of the way they keep control. But let me ask now, if I may, I mean,
Go ahead.
you know, you
He's a board member, I'm not going to tell him not to do it.
I thought you wanted me to.
Go ahead.
The stories you tell different people's stories, as Carl was indicating. Why do you select those people? Are they typical people representing China? Or?
And I want to ask a related question. You said you're a tape recorder of history, but you do more than that. What you also said is you distill the essence, the value of these stories. Because I think that these interviews you do are hours and hours long, and the stories are 10 or 12 pages. So in addition to the selection, how he selects, how do you then find the essence?
其实我采访的许多人，他们那个都是可能这一生就接受到唯一的一次这个采访。
The many people I've interviewed, probably that was the only interview they have received throughout their life.
他们也不会讲故事，也不会有其他什么更深刻的这样作家的那种。
They probably never know how to tell a story or how to think like a writer.
我 和他们接触的时候，就和他们就是聊天，或许是一个酒鬼对另外一个酒鬼，然后在某一个场景里面相遇。
Oftentimes when I talk with them, it's almost like one drunken person talking to another drunken person in a special circumstance, a special environment.
这个时候就，其实作家的那个角色，就是充当了一个狙击手，你要埋伏在那个暗处，然后把你的那个枪口，就是时刻就是准备好。他或许就是很多时候他那个故事根本就没有出现。我觉得这些人他就是东一句西一东一榔头西一棒子，你可能他跟你讲那个就是2-3个小时，你觉得没有什么价值。
When this happens, a writer's job is more like a sharpshooter who hides somewhere and try to ambush, and then when try to capture the story, when the story occurs, you aim at it, you capture it. Because oftentimes you might talk to the person for 2 or 3 hours, you might not get any stories at all.
但这个时候你就要告诉自己，就是说那个目标，他那个故事肯定会出现的。然后他在整个这个访谈当中，可能就是有个几分钟，他讲了他人生的某一个精彩，或者说他不认为精彩，作家认为精彩的一句。
When this happens, meaning 2 or 3 hours, you may not find a story. You have to tell yourself that something interesting is going to emerge, and then sometimes you may catch 2 or 3 minutes of the stories, and then the storyteller might not think that it's a story at all, but for the writer, you think that's actually the essence of his life, of his story.
Do you want to say, Andy's question about how you usually find these people extraordinary people?
因为我坐牢的时候就有很多这种人，我在那个收审所，就是那个看守所曾经睡在2个死囚犯之间，一个就是把他老婆杀了，然后砍成很多块儿，冻在那个冰箱里面，然后一块一块吃掉。然后我这边就住了一个从监狱里面逃跑的，就是住了这么2个人。
Many people that I've interviewed actually was some are people who I was very familiar with. When I was in jail, I had many inmates who had really interesting stories. For example, when I was in jail, I was sleeping next to I was sleeping in the middle of 2 death row inmates. One of the person was sitting next to me was killed his wife. He cut his wife up and then put in the refrigerator and then ate them up. And the other one was who escaped from prison. So all these different characters.
这个他们都戴着脚镣手套睡在我的旁边，然后随时都有可能被拉出去枪毙。我就睡在这么2个人中间，然后他们就是随时都在给我讲他们的故事，就是说他怎么样肢解他的老婆。
The people who slept next to me, they were all shackled, the heavy chains, and then they were ready to be shipped out for execution at any moment. And when I wanted to sleep, they would always tell me their life stories, and then just all night long.
然后我当时根本就不想听，我说因为这个听了太多次了，我说你就是最好是就是停止。他就说我不能停止，就说我明天可能就会出去，就会被枪毙掉。然后呢，就是你是我的最后一个听众，然后那个我就出去就像一个屁一样就消失了。我肯定要跟你讲，然后就是这种就跟你。
Initially, I didn't want to listen to their stories. I was tired of them, so I told them to stop. And they said that I cannot stop because tomorrow I could be executed, and I have to tell you because otherwise, when I'm executed, I will dissipate like a fart. That's why you are my last audience. I have to tell you my story.
当一个人把这么一个故事当成一个非常平淡的东西， 给你讲了几十遍之后，你出了监狱之后，多年之后你都摆脱不了它，你老是在甚至做梦你会做错的。
When a person like this tells you their life stories and many times, and then once you leave prison, you can never forget them, and they just keep you just keep thinking about these stories.
你这个有什么办法？有什么办法摆脱？你只有把它给写出来，写出来之后，然后这就开了一个头了，然后你突然有一天你发觉，中国的这个社会有很多这样的人，他们的故事没有人听，也没有人愿意听他们的这么。
So the only option to get out of this is to write them down. So gradually I wrote them down, and then when I was later on realized that in China there were so many people with such extraordinary stories that waiting for people to discover and to explore.
对，所以说这个有两个故事，一个是西方看到了中国的市场、中国的繁荣这么一个中国，另外一个中国就是这个地下的我讲述的这么一个中国，它完全是在暗自天日，人们就像一个老鼠一样穿来穿去，找不到方向，说不定某一天这个老鼠就消失了，就是这么，它有两个中国，就是当然那个。西方的很多政客只是看到了地上的那个。
There are two Chinas, two types of stories that people in the West they hear. One is the stories that we normally hear is the economic development in China. The other part, the government part of China. The other part is the stories I'm telling, like people like rats, they're running around, and sometimes they might just disappear. But a lot of the Western politicians they might only hear the first story. But they may not be able to hear the second.
In God is Red, I remember one part of the book you were talking about some of the house church Christians that you were interviewing. And I remember you said they are true storytellers. Compared to them, I'm just a mere scribbler. Could you sort of talk about these people that you have connected with? And, you know, their spirit, what they mean.
So question.
The question is to talk about these people that he interviewed who were the true storytellers compared to himself.
上帝是红色的，是我写的，好像是最有希望的这么一本书。其中当然有一个叫王志民。王志民现在他的塑像是在那个西米寺，他是上个世纪10个圣徒，其中有一个圣徒就是王。
God is Red is one of the books that's filled with hope, and it's a book about a lot of Christians in China that I interviewed. One of the persons that I interviewed is called Wang Zhimin. His figure is right now on display at Westminster Abbey, because he was one of the top 10 saints that the Church of England they recognize of the last century.
我当时采访了他的儿子，他讲述了一个他父亲时候，他父亲在文化大革命当中就是被关押了4年，然后被枪毙掉。
In the book, I interviewed the son of this martyr, the Christian martyr, and he told me the stories about his father who was imprisoned during the Cultural Revolution for 4 years before he was executed.
对，他当时就是因为他坚持自己的信仰，然后他就这么被枪毙，他就讲了他那个收尸的那个情节，他就说先是不准收尸，要示众。示众了之后，隔了好几个小时，然后那个时候就已经是黄昏了。
One of the stories he talked about his father's death during after he was executed, and they wouldn't allow him to collect the body because they wanted to parade his body around for several hours. And after finally all the parade was done was near dusk.
们这个时候允许他们收拾，他们然后把这个王志民的那个尸体抬在一个马车上面，然后把他那个脸上和身上的血迹，然后给他擦干净，然后就是用一个马车，然后往枪毙的现场，往他的村子里面走。
It was around dusk that they were allowed to collect his body. What the family did was they wiped the blood off his face and then put him on the horse-drawn cart, and then they moved his body from the execution ground to his village.
他当时那个马车，他那个马带着那个铃铛，一路叮叮当当，然后就往前面走，然后那个夕阳，然后就照下来，天上飘着这种红云。这个时候甚至是中途有一个小孩爬上那个马车，然后就去看那个王子民，他发觉这个人他是在笑，发现了他的这么一个笑容。所以在那一刻他讲述这个故事的时候，我当时是特别的感动。
During the conversation, told the story about when they moved the body from the execution ground to the village. It was nearly dusk, and then the cloud, there was the red clouds appeared in the horizon, and then as they were moving, and then a child climbed onto the horse-drawn cart and then tried to touch the body, and he saw that Wang Zhiming was smiling. So when I heard this part of the story, I was deeply touched.
所以这个是，那一刻我非常的震撼。我觉得，因为我以前那个不是一个有什么信仰的人，那一刻我真正是感到，这个世间他真正是有信仰，那个而且他这种信仰具有某一种审美，这种审美它是最高的。
I was deeply touched by the story because I always consider myself a person without any religious faith. When I saw that, I could see the miracles of faith, and I realized that this kind of faith has a lot of aesthetic values.
所以我联想到现在的那个罗马教皇要和中国签什么协议，然后怎么样，然后他明明知道中国的存在着这么一个，就是要打压这个信仰，甚至就是迫害这个家庭教会，然后迫害这些地下天主教徒的这么一个情况，还要去签这个，最起码其他我不敢评价。我觉得这个教皇他是缺乏审美的，他没有受过审美的训练。
That reminds me of the news I've read about Vatican trying to sign a treaty with China. I think that given the fact that the underground churches were so badly persecuted and so many people died of persecution, so the fact that you sign a treaty like that shows that the Pope doesn't have any aesthetic values. He doesn't appreciate the aesthetics of the Chinese underground churches. I cannot comment on this, but as far as writing is concerned, I just think he lacks the basic aesthetics.
对，这个很糟糕。作为一个神职人员，他是一个现实主义者，这是最糟糕的。
I think for a religious person who's so realistic and practical, it's a horrible thing.
And you had a beautiful story about one of these believers went to the Vatican and was actually questioned by someone to see if he was really, this is during Pope John Paul II. And when they realized that this believer was a true believer, they welcomed him in and then he met with Pope John Paul II. You remember that story? Do you want to say a word about that?
对张刚英的故事，他就说，他本来他是民国那个时候，就是共产党即将那个就是占领中国，他那个时候他是在梵蒂冈，他本来就是可以留在一个自由的世界，但是那个时候他为了上帝，他回去了，后来的 经历，大家都能够想象得到，他做了20多年。
In the book God is Red, I interviewed a person, a priest who was trained in Rome before the communist takeover. And during the World War II, he saved a lot of the Allied soldiers, and then he was recognized by both the government of China and then the Vatican. And after the communist takeover, he could stay in Rome, but he didn't. So he returned to China. As expected, that when he went back to China, he was in prison for 20 years.
后来那个他释放出来，刚好是邓小平那个上台，他是可以有一些可以有一些宗教这个时候他又去了一趟梵蒂冈，他可以出国。这个出国好像是那个邓小平特别批准。
In 1978, when Deng Xiaoping came to power, after Mao died, and Deng Xiaoping came to power, and then China allowed certain freedom of religion. And then Zhang Gangyi, the priest the story that I featured, he was released, and he was allowed to leave China. And then before he left China, he actually secured the permission he got the permission from Deng Xiaoping, who personally authorized his departure.
他后来就说有一个教皇身边的这么一个神父，就是为了考验这个人，因为他在毛泽东时代里面待了很长的时间，认为他被洗脑，就说了一些中国有进步啊，然后虽然经历了毛泽东时代，现在到底有进步啊，然后当时听到后来。张刚印实在是听不下去了，他就问了一声：“难道教宗是这样说的吗？”那个人说：“教宗是的，教宗这么说。”
So when he finally arrived in Vatican, and then some of the officials they didn't know whether he had been brainwashed or not. So one of the Pope's assistants went to see him, and they asked him lots of questions to test him. So as part of the test, the assistant raved about China's progress and went on about how China's religious freedom and then so this priest he interrupted the assistant's conversation. He said, "Is that what the Pope thought about China? Think about China?" And so the assistant said, "Yes."
然后张刚印这个时候他就勃然大怒，他就当时就是喊出来就说假教宗。
So that really so Zhang Gangyi flew into rage, and then when he realized that the Pope he thought the Pope really thought about what the progress in China, so he said that the Pope is a fake Pope.
后来这个神父才拥抱了他，然后那个教皇才接见了他。
And then the assistant embraced him, realizing he was brainwashed. And then later on, he arranged a meeting between the priest and a private audience with the Pope.
Pope John Paul II.
Pope John Paul II.
后来就说那个你还是可以，他就跟他说你可以留在梵蒂冈，就是怎么样。他说不，他说上帝给我的使命还是在中国。
So they tried to keep him in the Vatican, saying, but he said that my mission is in China, so he returned to China.
他后来就是遇到一件事情，就是说，当时那个全国的第一届就是那个天主教的这些那个主教呀、神父的这么一些会议，当时有个300多个人，然后好像是在上海召开这么一个会议。后来就是最后要做出一个表决，就是说他就做出了一个提案，就是说那个梵蒂冈是不是就是我们唯一应该追随的这么一个神的啊。
When he went back, it happened that 300 bishops and other religious officials, they held the first conference in Shanghai. During the conference, they made a proposal to, they made various proposals to, they are the patriotic churches. So Zhang Gangyi proposed that they should pledge allegiance to the Vatican.
后来就说，这个会议就否定了这个议题，就是意思说不讨论。但是他最后他就是要求服役，始终就说这个会开了2-3个小时，他的手臂就是一直就举着就说那个一直不放下来。
So they rejected his proposal first and set aside, and they did not want to discuss it. So in protest, he raised his hands throughout the whole time and wanted them to resume discussion of his proposal.
最后他从那个散了会，然后出门他就是叫了声上帝，他就昏过去了。
And then at the end of the conference, he came out of the conference center, and then at the stone steps, he passed out.
You know, I want you to say one more word about this deal between the Vatican and the regime. Do you think it's going to backfire? I want to know if he thinks that the Catholic Church in China could lose people because of this deal. I mean, what struck me, you know, in the book, I mean, I'd like to maybe also to talk about religion in China, because in January the regime implemented a whole series of new laws to repress religion, and they fear religion. And you wrote in the book that after Mao died, that religion, Christianity returned with a vengeance. I mean, how important, I mean, is the house church movement and religion in China, you know, and is it because people have lived through communism and now this materialism, everybody's hungry for the dollar, people want more than is given to them by the regime. Can you comment on this?
当然，现在大家关注的是那个城市的一个家庭教会。其实那个中国的天主教和中国的基督教对于中国的乡村生活特别的重要，因为乡村生活最开始那些传教士就是他们就选择是非常偏远、非常贫穷的那么一些乡村，直到现在他们很多地方都没有电。
Right now, we're all concerned about underground churches in the urban areas, but actually, religion plays a very important part in the rural life. And the Christian missionaries, they target very remote areas in China, and then they went there to evangelize, and then they converted a lot of rural Chinese people into Christians. And in some of the villages I visited, their villages still have no electricity.
对，这就是在150多年前，这些可能是他们的曾祖父的那一代，然后这些传教士当时很年轻，20多岁、30多岁，然后语言也不通，然后就到那个地方就开始传播这个福音，最后死了，然后就是埋在那里。
About 150 years ago, a lot of the young missionaries, they're probably in their 20s or 30s, so they traveled to these far remote corners of China, and then they started to spread the message, the gospel. And then these current Christians, probably their great-grandfather was there to, they were probably Christians, were converted. So a lot of the missionaries, when they died there, they were buried there in the villages.
最后当我某一天走进某一个乡村的时候，你看那些农民满脸的皱纹，然后那个可能就说那个就是好像是从泥巴里面长出来的这些人，然后你问他们的名字，然后他们叫什么 Peter、雅各，然后那个都是圣经里面的名字，或许都是那个什么耶稣那个是12门徒里面的那些名字的话，你会感觉到这个世界非常的魔幻，就是说这些名字是从他们的曾祖父或者祖父的那一代 一代一代的传下来，然后他们就叫这些名字。
When you go to visit some of the remote villages, and you might run into some of the young villagers, and they might, or older villagers, their face are wrinkled, or they might look like they just emerged from mud. But when you ask what their names are, they will tell you that the names are Peter or Jacob. It could be the names from the Bible, the biblical names, or the names of the 12 disciples of Jesus. It is such a surreal moment. You know that they must have gotten the names from their great-grandparents and who were the disciples, the Christian missionaries.
Can you say a word about Ruth? The story about Ruth
有一个叫路的一个故事。
and emancipation?
So what's the name of the story?
I can't remember, but
I don't
it was the
forgot the
fellowship.
name.
I think it was the fellowship when
就是那个
when you were brought to a house church.
教育。
When you were brought to the house church and you met this woman who took it into
对，就是我到一个村子里面，那个村子里面非常的贫穷，就是连那个厕所都没有一个好的。然后呀，那些牛，然后他们然后就说有一个每一个村子他都会在1个月1次举办一个活动，我去的时候，感觉到那个村子非常多的那个苍蝇，那个人互相之间谈话，那个村苍蝇就布满他们的头，然后布满他们的，然后他这个苍蝇如果是扒在你的嘴上，然后他们就把这个苍蝇，然后也要咽下来，然后就互相之间又继续谈话，然后当他们那个进餐，然后开始唱圣歌的时候，因为都是那个彝族，我觉得那个圣歌特别的好听。这个时候，他们那个圣歌一停，你就听到那个天空，就像那个苍蝇嗡，就是好像那个苍蝇也在唱这种圣歌。我那个听到的最感人的那个二重唱，就是说那个二部合唱，就这个时候听到的，觉得苍蝇还能够发出那种名字。
I'll just summarize very quickly. So I went to visit a village. It was so poor they didn't even have decent toilets. And in the village, and a lot of the I told you my mind started to go back. In the village, I went to visit and then they didn't have anything to they didn't have any other forms of entertainment, but they meet once a month for Christian fellowship. And then I remember that I went to attend one of the fellowship meetings. There were so many flies, and when people talk, the flies were all over the place, all over your face, and people just calmly swat the flies to death and then keep the conversation. And then at the end of the beginning of the fellowship, they prepare this feast, and then you have to fight off the flies. And then, but after the meal was over, they start to sing hymns. And the hymn sounded so beautiful. It was so surreal in that environment. And then after the hymn was over, the flies started coming and started to sing again. It's like a duet, of course, the hymn and then the singing of the flies. It was quite an experience.
And Ruth was part of that.
Ruth was part of a woman who was converted during she participated in the fellowship, and she.
And can you say a word about the cancer patient?
就讲讲那个癌症病人，贵州那个癌症病人。
那个你肯定印象深。
So the book tells the story about the cancer patient who grew up in Shanxi province. But they were so poor, there was no water in the village. But then he and his wife, they moved to Guizhou and then start the sewing business. He was a tailor, and then he found that he had cancer. Last days to live, he was converted into Christianity. And then this is a book about, he interviewed him about how the underground churches changed his life.
And he survived.
Yeah, he's At the end of the book, he died, but he managed during the last, lived a very, he said, very meaningful life during the last few
I'm
years.
sorry for focusing so much on religion, but this book,
之前的1个星期还给我打了个电话，
He called me a week before his death, and then told that, 后来打电话。
他还是就说感谢主。
He very humbly.
他那个临终的时候感觉到很多温暖，特别是王姨他们那个教会，给了他很多温暖。
He was very grateful that before his death, all the other Christians showed a lot of care and love, especially from a church that he knew from Sichuan.
I would just one more question on religion, because I really urge everyone to read God is Red. I mean, everybody knows about Corpse Walker, but God is Red is an extraordinary book. I found it deeply moving. And there was one, I want to ask about your own personal attitude toward religion. I mean, you said that you were so deeply touched when this child touched the body of Wang Jimin after he was executed. And then, you went and interviewed the son. And you talked about all the trouble you had. You lost the first interview, or at least half of the first interview. When you were going for a second interview to interview the son, you lost your bag with your flute and your tape recorder, and then there was a terrible traffic jam. And you said that the whole world seemed to have risen up against me. And then you said, as you were walking to the house where Wang Jishen, the son, was living, as the sun was disappearing behind the mountains, you said that 2 rainbows suddenly emerged in the sky, forming a colorful cross. You're not a believer, but did you almost become a believer then?
那个作为一个我这种类型的，就是说作家，我觉得很多时候要避免自己这么一种观点。你除非是在为别人的自由而奋战的时候，这个时候你应该有比较强烈的关于你的一个观点。但是你在记录这个时候的时候，你要想到这个是在写一种他人的故事。
When I do stories like that, I try to avoid my own opinions, because if you fight for somebody's cause, it's very strong. It's very important you are very opinionated. You have to have your own strong views on something. But when you tell other people's stories, try to not be judgmental. So I try to avoid having such any opinions.
所以如果说观点的话，我从这种角度的话。 我远远不如那个李安友教授那么优秀，他就是他的那个观点，然后他的文章都给我很多的那个启发。但是我这个我在记录这些的时候，就是我有些时候看不出我的观点是什么。
He said when it comes to opinions and Professor Nathan has done a much better job expressing opinions than myself. But many of his views and opinions have influenced me greatly. But when I'm writing these stories, I don't feel like I want to project my own opinions in the pieces.
Okay, I understand. But let me change the subject. And some of the stories, by the way, tell real horrors. And there's one which is called The Retired Official, which describes just unspeakable horrors that took place during the enormous famine that accompanied the so-called Great Leap Forward. And 30 million people died. And this official, saw terrible things, including cannibalism. And you have today a regime in China that calls any discussion of that historical nihilism, including, the Cultural Revolution, which has been called the spiritual Holocaust, when the country descended into chaos. More than 1 million people were killed, a kind of ideological madness. And of course, the Tiananmen massacre. And could you, I mean, are people of China aware of these horrors, and what can be done to tell them the truth when the regime, has passed an act called the Heroes and Martyrs Protection Act, which prevents any criticism of the Maoist Communist Party or the current Communist Party?
我在西方来已经有7年了，流亡已经7年了。我在柏林那个地方就说，和其他这个作家有交流。我知道这个世界总是一个新闻掩盖另外一个新闻，一个罪恶，新的罪恶出来了，就会掩盖旧的一种罪恶。
I've been on exile in the West for 7 years.
对，7年。
7 years. In the West, I always have a lot of contact with other writers. And in the West, I noticed that when you watch news, it's always like when news comes up, it's so important, and then it's got buried by something else. So it's almost like in China now, it's one evil crime comes up and then buries another one.
对，当你看到那个伊斯兰国，然后兴起，然后他们那个抓到一些西方的记者，然后当着大家的面，然后割头。特别是有一次我看到一个日本的记者，一个日本的记者割头，然后日本政府也没有什么办法。经历了很多，你觉得这一惨剧，当你接触的时候，你觉得这个的确是太惨了。这个时候，你就突然就是意识到，这个世界也不是一个点，就是说，你要让这个西方人，让整个世界记住这个天安门我们经历的大屠杀，这个的确是非常困难的。就是说，这个按照一个人的遗忘的一个本体。
For example, with the rising of ISIS, I used to watch with horror see the execution of journalists. For example, one day I saw the Japanese journalist was beheaded, and then it was so tragic. And then that makes me think that there's so many horrible things happening, and then one thing happens and people forget it because we are more forgetful. So if we want the world, we want the Chinese people to remember the Tiananmen massacre, it's almost an impossible task because just one thing comes another, and people tend to be more forgetful.
但是对于我来说，就是我自己，就是说印象最深的，就是说改变我的人生的，就是那个天安门大屠杀，然后我写了一个大屠杀，然后因此坐牢，改变了我的人生。
But for myself, it's very important, for example, the Tiananmen massacre, because I wrote a poem and I ended up in jail for 4 years. That totally changed my life.
对，但当一个难民，他经历了很多灾难，然后当另外一个人的新的罪恶，然后他也在哭诉的时候，这个时候你就感觉这个世界就是说很茫然。但是到最后，你要想到就是说，一个德国人，一个叙利亚人，一个其他人，他们所了解他们的历史，就是一个普通人所了解他们的历史，比那个一个中国人，一个中国的作家或者是一个中国的就是异议分子了解的要多得多。这个了解的那个真相，了解的这个切身体会，比你要深刻得多。
For when I'm in Germany, I meet a lot of refugees and some of the people that came from Syria, or I meet some Germans who have experienced all kinds of the horrors of history. But when you talk with them, you will know that these people, they know more about their own history and their past than some Chinese dissidents or some writers of China.
所以说，就说我活到这么大的年纪，我就是只能够某种程度上，只能够记录，就是天安门大屠杀也好，关于中国人的历史也好，你只能选择这个。
At this age, that the only task I think I can do is report the history, whether be it Tiananmen massacre and
就是其他那些，因为我在中国生活了大半辈子嘛，
since I lived most of my life in China, so that's the only thing I can do to report this historical event.
I want to ask you about the power of the powerless in China. We all know Havel's essay, and he said that people have within themselves the power to overcome their powerlessness by living in truth. That's what he said. And I want you to try, if you can, to apply that to China.
There's a good question from the audience. In fact, there
Okay, I didn't know you got them. I didn't even know that they were
there
done.
are two that are relevant.
All right, well, I'll do that. Let me ask my question first, and then I'll read these. I didn't know that they were coming in. But thank you. I wasn't sure that actually it was happening, that we were going to be getting these questions. But in an essay that Liu Xiaobo wrote in 2006 called "To Change a Regime by Changing Society," he talked about the erosion of the pillars of totalitarianism in China, the economic, the political, the ideological pillars. We're eroding. Since then, China has centralized power, and they're creating a surveillance state using facial recognition technology and so forth. And is it possible that the Havel vision can apply to China? You said elsewhere once that the true spirit of the Chinese will outlast the rule of the totalitarian regime. Do you believe that? And how do you see that possibly happening?
现在中国的情况，和那个刘晓波起草08宪章的时候，又有很大的不一样。比如说现在就是习近平他已经准备要回到一个毛时代，然后他就是取消了这个国家主席的这么一个任期，然后在这个同一年的话。 他在北京那个郊外就是一下子清除了，在一个大冬天，把那个就是20多万人赶上那个街头，这就人家指挥。
The situation in China now is vastly different from the one that when Liu Xiaobo drafted the 08 charter. And since Xi Jinping has taken power, he has extended the term limits and completely returned China to the Cultural Revolution. And also, as you have all heard, that last year when China tried to drive 200,000 migrant workers out of their homes in the dead winter.
当这一刻的时候，我觉得每一个就是在无家可归的街头上，就是受冻的一个，他都是异议分子，在这一刻，他都是这个国家至少是。
When this happens, this critical moment, I think those homeless migrants, I consider them as all 200,000 migrant workers. They are dissidents of China.
Two of the questions, by the way, really apply to that. So I'm going to ask a third question, which is a little bit different, but related to the power of the powerless. And it's which of Havel's works has influenced you the most? An essay, a play, his dissident activities, his political actions, or something else? Tell us what you think about Havel, and this may also be something that Liu Xiao might want to comment on.
得第一次我就是读到哈维尔作品，是我刚刚出监狱不久，也有一个朋友从香港带了个激进出版社的张永进翻译的一个哈维尔的那个文集给我的时候。
The Harvard's works have a great influence over me because when in 1994, when I first came out of prison, a friend brought me a book of collected works of Harvard, and it was published in Hong Kong. Translated by 张永进。
我翻开了哈维尔的有一篇文章，他就是讲他是一个孩子的时候，他在那个田野里面，那天就是阳光也很好，那个鸟儿也在歌唱，突然看到那个远处，就是冒起了一股黑烟，这个黑烟就是那个集体农庄的那种黑烟，越来越弥漫，越来越，后来就是这个黑烟弥漫了整个天空。
One of the articles in the book I remember is talking about his childhood years when he was playing the field, and then it was very sunny, and then it was a beautiful day, and then suddenly he saw smoke in the distance coming out of it. Turned out there was a smoke coming from the collective farm.
他说那个时候他第一个是感觉到非常的恐惧，他想逃离这个东西，但是他那个时候又觉得自己好像是逃离不了。他这个时候他说后来回忆，这个是他最初的一个政治信念，不能够让这个集体农庄的这个黑烟污染这个人类的天空。
When he saw the black smoke coming out of the collective farm, he was very horrified. He felt like he could escape, but at the same time he couldn't. He said that, if I remember correctly, that that was his earliest political belief, that he felt that he would never allow collective farms to take over and never allow black smoke of the collective farm to ruin the beautiful landscape.
Say something about that? Okay, no, I understand. Maybe just following up on what you just said about Havel and the collective farm and the smoke. You said that you're not really political. Liu Xiaobo was political, and he got you to sign a lot of petitions, but you yourself are not political. But your writing has made you political. And what is it about your writing that has made you political?
后来就是在这本文集后来是在那个刘晓波第3次入狱的前夕，他就是在这个成都来，然后他就把我的这个文集他就拿走了，然后他当时开了个玩笑，也就是说，就是说这个就是我喝着你的茶，然后读着这个哈维尔这个文集。其中有一篇的标题叫《无权者的权利》，他当时，后来就是这个玩笑开了大概就是1个多星期之后，他就被抓了。
I want to come back to the Havel's work that I mentioned, and I had the works, and Liu Xiaobo took it when before he was jailed for the 3rd time, so he took it from me. And then after he read the book, the Havel's collected works, he told me that one of the articles he read really impressed him. The name of the article was called "The Power of the Powerless." And he said he was reading the article while sipping hot tea. And even though after he made the remarks, and then he was put in jail.
我还喜欢哈维尔的。有一点就是说，哈维尔，因为有一个作家叫米兰昆德拉，在中国非常有影响。我们当时还是很喜欢他的作品。他跟那个米兰昆德拉有一场著名的争论。
There was another writer that really impressed us, Milan Kundera, and then I remember there used to be a debate between Havel and Milan And then Kundera is also very popular among Chinese readers.
当时那个哈维尔他就发起了一些请愿，然后包括就是后来七七宪章这个，然后昆德拉就说就认为这些东西就是没有什么用，他就觉得就是说与其这样的话，不如去谈下钱，多给他们一些多给他们一些物质上的什么帮助啊，这样一些。
During the debate, I remember that Havel tried to launch all kinds of petitions, including the July 7 charter. But Kundera didn't believe that it was useful. He believed that maybe it was more useful to provide some material support for ordinary people.
当时那个哈维尔有一个观点对我来说影响很大，他就是觉得在监狱里面的政治犯就说其实是最担心被人遗忘，特别是担心被自己为之奋斗的那个事业所遗忘。当他某一天在某一个地方听到一个陌生的人，或者一个陌生人提到他的名字，他心里面会感到莫大的安慰。
One of the passages that influenced me most, one of the passages written by Havel that influenced me the most was related to prisoners. He said when a person is in jail, the things that feared most is about being forgotten by the outside world, especially being forgotten by the causes that you are in. Okay, so one day when you hear a stranger mention your name, it becomes the greatest comfort, something to the effect.
对，作为一个坐了牢的作家，我觉得哈维尔他说的非常对。
As a person who has been in jail for 20 years, I really feel that word. I think it's absolutely right.
We've heard that from so many people who've come out of totalitarian systems. We hear that all the time. This is one question which actually is related to something that Liu Xiaobo wrote. And let me read the question, and then I want to make a comment about something that Liu Xiaobo wrote. With a fifth of the world's population and economic, political, and technological might, what's the potential of China exporting illiberalism to other countries, especially those that lie along the Belt and Road Initiative, the trillion-dollar infrastructure project, which is a geopolitical project. Liu Xiaobo, in 2006, wrote a remarkable essay in which he warned, when everybody believed that China would liberalize by becoming economically developed and all the internet and so forth, he warned that if China rose as a dictatorship, you'd have the same problem with Germany rising as a dictatorship under Hitler, and the Soviet Union rising as a dictatorship under Stalin, and they mentioned the Meiji emperors in Japan, and the danger of this. And Liu Xiaobo said that it would not only be a catastrophe for China, but it would be a catastrophe for the spread of liberal democracy in the world. And that's really what the question is all about. Maybe you can comment on that.
对，就是在去年的时候，大家已经看到了，就是在这个汉堡，就是西方最强的，就是19个国家加上中国，就是举行了一次会议，就是那个时候就说，只有那个默克尔在跟习近平谈这个刘晓波的西方治病的这个问题，其他那个就是任何政府都是想到的中国就是只有这个巨大的市场，在这个时候，我就感觉到，我听到这个消息，我感觉到非常的渴望，我就知道就是那个市场的力量有多么的大，这个就是说那个中国的市场化根本就不可能促进什么民主，只能就是说那个中国的独裁，它利用了那个资本主义， 他就是成长成为一个怪物，一个庞然大物。现在对。
We can already see that. I agree with Liu Xiaobo said. We can already see that last year when all the world leaders gathered in Hamburg, and only Angela Merkel was the only person who mentioned Liu Xiaobo's case. And when China attended the summit, was the only person who mentioned the case, and the rest of the world remained silent over the issue. So everybody, they pulled over China's market, and we can see that market doesn't really bring democracy. And then right now, the Chinese dictators in China, they have turned this market into a huge monstrous thing that is affecting the West.
如果说美国不发动这个贸易战争的话，就是那个刘霞能不能够出来，真的是很难说。
If the U.S. had not launched a trade war with China, it is impossible to tell whether Liu Xia could have been allowed to leave China or not.
所以说，从这个角度的话，尽管我知道西方有很多人对川普总统不是太看好，所以就是在这个事情上，我是感谢川普。
On this case, I know that you guys will understand. So I know that most of us don't particularly like Donald Trump, but just for this particular case, I'm grateful to Donald Trump for launching the trade war and making it possible for Liu Xia to be released.
但是在这种情况下，大家不要忘记了，他们释放刘霞的第二天，他们就是也抓了那个秦永敏，秦永敏判了非常重的刑，就是判了13年，这是也是对。
We shouldn't forget the fact that the second day after they released Liu Xia, they arrested another human rights activist, Qin Yongmi, and then he was sentenced to 13 years in prison.
前几天，我接到一个那个黄旗就是天网，就是60天网的那个创办人，然后他的一个义工跟我发这个私信，就是说那个黄旗已经处于那个生命的危险，然后他的80多岁的老母亲在为他到处举牌，到处呼吁。我当时就是感觉到非常的震惊，就是一个人已经是到达一个快死的一个程度，他在这个程度，如果说没有也不会放他就是。
Then I got news that another human rights activist, Wang Qi, he helped launch it's another a website that and he was in jail. He was on the verge of dying, and then the Chinese government wouldn't release him. His mother was rallying support, and that really shocked me because when a person who was dying and the Chinese government is not willing to release him.
And they murdered Li Baiguang in February. I think they accused a lawyer for the House Church movement, and he was murdered in February. Do you have a word to say about what's happening today in Xinjiang and putting 1 million Uyghurs into concentration camps?
这个就相当于在新疆再次发动一个文化大革命，它就是那个洗脑，这一套也不是邓小平发明的，都是毛泽东发明的。
This is like launching another cultural revolution in Xinjiang. It's a brainwashing movement. It's nothing new. Deng Xiaoping didn't invent it. Mao Zedong invented himself.
Very interesting. We have time for one more question. Let me pose it. When you received the PEN Award, I think it was in 2007, they didn't allow you to come and receive the award, but you had a written acceptance statement. And in that acceptance statement, you said that you had 4 teachers. And one of them was hunger, one of them was having no residential permit, one of them was homelessness, and the 4th was prison. Maybe you could just say a word about that, your teachers, and how it influenced your work.
这个也就是我的人生，一个是饥饿，2岁的时候我遭遇了3年大饥荒，就是6个那年差点被饿死，但是我还是幸运，因为那年就是那3年中国饿死了3000到4000万，我无论如何还是幸存下来的。然后后来那个到了文革，就是说到处查户口，然后我妈妈就是老师就是带着我，那个就是有一段时间就是一个地方只能够度过1个月2个月，这叫居无定所，对。
The article I wrote is about my 4 teachers that actually summarized my life. First, hunger. I was born in 1958. I was born in 1958, the year of the Great Leap Forward, and China had mouse policy led to a massive starvation. At the age of 2, I almost died of malnutrition, but fortunately I survived. But that year, 30 or 40 million Chinese died of starvation. So I was fortunate enough. And then during the Cultural Revolution, my father was branded a counter-revolutionary, and they had a divorce. So my mother and 4 of her children, including me, we moved from city to city, because in Chinese cities you require the city permits to live. We never had any permits. So we lived from place to place. Sometimes we stayed in one city for a couple months, and then we had to move again. So we never had a permanent residence.
然后第3个老师就是黑人黑户，就是说没有户口。如果说你从一个小城市迁徙到大城市，如果是没有户口的话，那是很糟糕的一件事情。他就可以随时那个民兵闯入你的家，然后把你抓走。
So in those days, you didn't have a residential permit. It was a very hard life because you could live at the place, and then the militia could come into your house and raid your house and kick you out. Especially if you live in a small city, you want to move to a major city. That happened most frequently.
就最后一个老师就是监狱，监狱让我从一个诗人变成了一个建筑者。
And the life in prison, meaning I was imprisoned after 1989 for writing the poem Massacre. And before my imprisonment, I was a poet. And after I came out of prison, I became a witness to history, and I began to record other people's lives.
Andy, do you want to reflect on what you've heard?
Oh, I was going to ask a couple more questions. But, well, I mean, I think I'll reflect instead. You know, I think廖亦武has, he mentioned, he's told us about the other side of China, not the side that we hear so much about. And I think, I would have been curious to ask whether he feels that other side of China is more real or more authentic than the side of China that we hear so much about, but we don't want to have more questions, but we could ask that.
I mean, he said that. He said he's telling the real China that is hiding behind this rhetoric about.
All right, and if I'm allowed to ask a question, I'll also ask whether he feels that that other side of China is uniquely Chinese, or whether he feels that that's humanity as it happens to be found in the places that he looked. But whatever answer he may have to my question, I think that what he's producing is wonderful art and very insightful about the human condition. So his art is really successful and important.
You want to say it in Chinese?
No, I don't want to do that.
I didn't quite hear you.
Go ahead, go ahead.
你说我们外国人知道是中国一方面，但是你的故事里面是另外一方面，是下层社会。这个下层社会，一个问题是说，这个下层社会是代表一个更真实的中国吗？还是就是中国的一方面，两方面都可以说是真实？而且另外一个问题是说，这个你的故事能够反映出来的人，可以说是所有人，全球的人都是一样，都是这样，或者你的意思是说，这个是中国才会有的这种人，但是你无论如何回答我的问题的话，我说你的艺术是非常好，表现一个就是说对人类的一个重要的一个深入的了解。
应该是黄文翻译的。
应该是啊。这大部分我刚刚也说了英语，所以没有必要他来服务现在。
对。你可以赶紧也回答。
这个也，我80年代做诗人的那个时候，我认为那个自己的生活差不多就是一个全部。那个时候也对那个西方的现代派啊，然后那个金斯伯格有些模仿。那个时候认为自己了解整个世界，结果那个有一天你被投进了监狱，你才发觉这个世界不是这样。我进监狱的第一幕，我认为那个时候我还是一个比较有名的诗人。
In the 1980s, I was a poet. I thought the life I lived reflected the life of other ordinary Chinese. And I was very enamored of Western poets. And I started to take a strong interest in contemporary poems. And I wrote a lot, and I thought I knew more about the West than anybody else. And then when I was put in jail, I suddenly realized life is not like that. And then,
然后我就进了那个监狱，他那个是一个2楼一个楼板，然后就突然就是有几个犯人就扑了上来就是把我的衣裳裤子一下拔得精光。我从来就没有像这么当众被拔个精光的。然后就是有一个他们就把我摁在地上，然后就开始剃头。哗哗哗剃了之后，然后他们就让我把这个屁股给撅起来，我也没办法，我就只有撅起来，然后就用一根筷子在我的屁眼里面搅，看看里面藏没藏东西。这个时候，你就觉得我完全无法应对这个世界，然后最后我就像一个被拔光的妓女，站在那个3月份还是比较冷，站着的就是等待他们每一样做好。但是这是一个中国监狱的，后来我了解，这个收身这是一个常态。我真的就是不了解，在以前坐牢之前，我不理解中国社会原来就是这样。
So before I was in jail, I was quite a well-known poet. But then when they put me in jail the first day, they took me to a 2-story building. And then once I entered the jail, and then several people suddenly pounced on me, and then they ripped my clothes off and tried to search to see if I had anything hidden in the clothes. After I was completely naked, they had me crawl over, and then they stick chopsticks into my anus and tried to see if I had anything hidden in there. And when this happened, I suddenly realized that when I was naked, I was so humiliated And then I just realized that that life was not really what I had expected. It was a completely different life.
所以就是每一个人，包括你自己。
And now I realized that this whole what the body search, what I went through, was very common, especially among prisoners.
每一个人在中国社会，哪怕你就是感觉良好，某一天你都有可能待遇就是这样，就是都可能成为那个中国底层当中的一员。但是在西方肯定不是这样。
In China, you might feel very good one day, and suddenly the next day you could all end up in jail and go through the same process. You could become a member of the bottom rung of society. So nobody's secure, and I don't think that's the case in the West.
Okay. I want to first of all thank Andy, and also for posing that last question. Obviously, once again, I want to let Lucia know that how she graces us this evening and how grateful we are to have her with us. But I want to just say one very presumptuous thing in conclusion. I mean, I'm not any kind of a literary critic, but I think as I might have, betrayed a certain enthusiasm that I developed from reading these stories by Liao Yiwu. And, in 2015, another person who conducted interviews got the Nobel Prize for Literature, Svetlana Alexievich from Belarus, wrote remarkable books based upon interviews with the kind of people that Liao Yiwu has interviewed and somehow really brought it all to life with tremendous meaning. And he has done that. He has done that in a way that I have not read anybody who's done it as well. And so, if Havel nominated Liu Xiaobo for the Nobel Peace Prize, let me presumptuously conclude this meeting by nominating Liao Yiwu for the Nobel Prize for Literature. Thank you.